time, getting to know the person behind the name.
My name is Dr. Saadhna Paanday. I'm a senior research specialist at the Human Sciences Research Council. I work in a unit called Child, Youth, Family and Social Development at the HSRC. By training, I'm a pharmacist. That's my background. I did that for about 6 months only. I worked at a public hospital in Durban, and it was really an exciting experience. It was my first interaction with the world outside of my home, essentially. So it was gave me a very good grounding about what was happening in South Africa, the realities of South Africa. And while the training was good, I felt that we could do things better.
Yeah.
And my dad always tells me that after 3 months, I said to him I couldn't do this for the rest of my life. And so I decided, I needed to move higher up the food chain to start to influence the policies and procedures that were happening in the healthcare system. And so to do that, I needed to improve my training and my skills. Then I went on to do a master's in public health in Sweden. And I followed that up with a PhD in health promotion. I did that at Maastricht University in the Netherlands. And so that gave me the type of skills I needed to function as a researcher. And so I got into research.
And what is your role as a researcher when it comes to the HSRC?
Okay, when I started off, my training is my PhD is in tobacco control, so it's dealing with issues of trying to get young people not to smoke, to prevent them from starting to smoke, and to help them to quit. That's where I did my training. I've also worked broader than that in substance use, so looking at alcohol use, looking at drug use, and how this is curtailing opportunities for young people. And then more than that, now I'm very much focused on youth development issues. So looking at the 4 key areas of youth development, which is education and skills development. So making sure that we get young people into school, we keep them there, so we prevent drop out, but we also give them a good quality education that gives them the basis to go forward in their lives. So youth education, looking at employment. Employment is a huge concern for young people in South Africa. We see that 70% of the unemployed in South Africa are actually young people. So it's one of the biggest challenges, if not the biggest challenge, we are facing amongst young people in this country. We also look at health and well-being. We know that HIV is a disease of young people.
Yeah.
It's afflicting the working age group, who are the 14 to 35-year-olds. We also look at civic participation. We need young people to be involved in the decision making, so to be active participants in decision making, not only for themselves, but also for the country as a whole. As a way of background to the project, we've done some quite seminal pieces of research on youth development. In 2003, we produced a report for the Umzobomvu Youth Fund called the Status of Youth Report, that looks at those 4 key areas of development. So it's almost like an assessment of what we've achieved over the last 10 years in South Africa since we've had democracy, and it serves as a baseline for going forward. So if we want to measure against what progress we have made, that document will provide that baseline. We did that piece of research, which was very well received in the country. And then in 2005, the African Union asked us to write a report on the status of youth in Africa, and then to go on to draft the African Youth Charter. Now, the African Youth Charter basically sets out the rights and responsibilities of young people and the steps that government must take to ensure that young people can enjoy those rights and responsibilities. And I went to the negotiations in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. All the member states came together. We looked at the charter, we agreed on the rights and the responsibilities. And then in 2006, the heads of state adopted that charter, which means now it's up to countries to ratify it. And once they ratify it, it becomes a legally binding framework. So we have all of these very good pieces of research that we have done. But we're uncertain about whether it's moving policy or program development in the country. We don't know if it's impacting on the policy choices that we're making for young people in the country. We do not know if it's influencing how programs are set up. And that's why we've conceived of this project called the Youth Policy Initiative. The aim is to bridge this gap between research and policy and program development. So what happens is that we get key players, so researchers, government officials, policy makers, the youth sector, so the National Youth Commission, the Umzubomvu Youth Fund, the South African Youth Council, but also implementing bodies to come together and sit around the table and say, what are the key challenges facing young people? What is the nature of those challenges? We're no more interested in just counting numbers. It doesn't matter whether 70% of young people are unemployed or 75%. It still means a lot of young people are unemployed. What is important is what's driving that unemployment. Because when we know what's driving the unemployment, we can then work out what are the possible strategies or interventions that we can implement. Then we're also running a poll on our website, which we call a youth poll. So every roundtable has a critical question that is featured on the website. It's www.hsrc.ac.za. Young people can go to that website and voice their opinion.
Okay.